Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third WisTech webinar for 2026. And this is Laura Plummer, Statewide Assistive Technology Program Director for WisTech, Wisconsin's Assistive Technology Program. Today's webinar will be discussing vision loss, advocacy, and assistive technology. And a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. This is the webinar platform, which does mean that your video and audio is automatically turned off. We do have chat and Q&A for questions and comments. And this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube webpage following the event. We are offering free CEUs and CRC credits for today's webinar, and you will be able to receive those by completing the short survey that will be available after the webinar and sent within the next day after this webinar closes. And CRC credits and CEUs will be issued within 30 days of this webinar. We do have sign language interpretation available using the globe icon on your menu item, as well as closed captions. And I believe that is our housekeeping today. So I am excited to welcome Denise Jess, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Council for the Blind, and Jim Denham, the Access Technology Specialist. And they will be sharing a vast amount of information today about assistive technology, vision loss, and advocacy and support, so you can expand the services that you provide. So welcome, Denise and Jim, and I will turn it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Laura. My name is Jim Denham. As Laura mentioned, I am the Access Technology Specialist with the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. I've been in the field of access technology for about 20 years. Makes me feel old, but and I've been with the council for about 9 years. So looking forward to sharing a lot of information with you today. Just to kind of give you some background, I am a person who lives with vision loss. So I've been totally blind since birth. I've got a little bit of light perception, but really nothing usable. So a lot of this technology we'll be talking about today, I'm a user of on a frequent basis, on a daily basis. And I have also served as chair of the Assistive Technology Advisory Council. So I've worked with Laura quite a bit. And like I said, looking forward to presenting and sharing a lot of information with all of you today. And I will turn it over to my co-presenter, Denise Jess.
Thanks so much, Jim. Good morning, everybody. Or yes, I guess it's morning across the United States. So just lunchtime if you're calling in from the East Coast. I am really pleased to be invited to do the webinar with you all today, and really excited to do this with Jim. So I am the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired, celebrating my 10th anniversary as director tomorrow. I also am a person with significant vision loss since birth. I make daily use of access technologies myself, so both screen reader technologies that we'll be discussing in some detail today, and also magnification and contrast using the bit of functional vision that I have access to. So we have a full agenda, and Jim, whenever you're ready, if you want to begin screen share, I can get us started with doing a review of what our agenda looks like, and then we'll get rolling. Jim, this is perfect. Thank you so much. So our agenda for today is to touch base a little bit on the blind and low vision population in Wisconsin. And we wanted to start there because we sometimes can be underrepresented in some of our disability circles, and having a good sense of the population numbers, I think, sets us up well to have an awareness when we're providing service. And there's going to be some parallels to what those percentages and numbers look like on the national basis. So when you all were checking in, I could hear that many of you are also coming from around the United States. So I'm thinking that that little bit of population information is going to be useful no matter where you're calling or coming in from. And we really want to look at the implications that those population numbers have on service. We're going to overview access technology and the diversity of them. We'll touch base on digital accessibility, what that means and what our responsibilities are when we're creating digital content to make it accessible. The council, one of the things that we do here is public policy advocacy. So we'll look at some advocacy opportunities, and then we'll share some and how we do shared responsibility, and we'll share some resources. So we have a robust agenda. What we would love is if you've got kind of a clarifying question, like, can you just repeat that specific thing, or did you say X? Please feel free to put those in the chat right away, and we'll pause relatively frequently to check with Laura to see if there are any of those kind of clarifying questions. We want to save bigger, more discussion-focused questions, or ones that have kind of more depth to them, to the end, just so that we're making sure we're moving through everything that we want to bring you today. And Jim, you can go forward when you're ready. So let's talk a little bit about the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. So those of you who may not be super familiar with us have a sense of who we are and what we do. Our mission is to promote the dignity and empowerment of the people of Wisconsin who are blind and low vision. We have been doing this work for 74 years. We'll celebrate our 75th tomorrow. And we are a statewide serving nonprofit. Sometimes our name leads people to believe that we're part of the state or that we are associated with the American Council of the Blind. Both awesome entities and not us. We are an independent nonprofit. We have three primary pillars that guide our work. Teaching the skills of vision rehabilitation, which includes access technology instruction, orientation and mobility instruction, which is basically white cane and navigation, vision rehabilitation, so skills of daily living, and low vision therapy. We also have the Sharper Vision Store, which has a lot of accommodative devices for people with vision loss. And that store is both brick and mortar and online presence. And we serve the country through that store because we've curated our items. We know their quality. And I'm happy to see them get into the hands of people from around the country. We have a pretty vibrant education program, and that education program faces families and individuals who are experiencing vision loss. A number of people begin losing vision in adulthood, and we'll talk more about that population shortly. So there's a lot to learn about navigating the world as someone who is blind or low vision, and also the emotional and cognitive changes that go with that. And then we face the general public in a number of ways through really cool events like Birding by Ear and Dining in the Dark and our annual gallery night. And those public-facing events are so critical for breaking down bias that is often directed, and misconceptions directed towards those of us who are blind and low vision. And then the last pillar of our work is our public policy advocacy, both from the grassroots level, really helping our constituency learn to be their own best advocates, through working in the Wisconsin legislature with our state agencies and in coalitions to uplift the quality of life and reduce barriers for those of us that are blind and low vision. We're guided by our values, which are integrity, uncompromising respect and inclusivity. And Jim, we can move forward. So let's talk a little bit about the blind population in Wisconsin. So our best estimate is that there are about 142,000 or 3.2% of Wisconsin's population ages 18 and over are blind or have significant vision loss. And I say about because while our numbers for population come from tools like the US Census and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they are self-reported numbers. And we all know that there's so much disability bias in our country that sometimes folks are not comfortable self-reporting. So we make a pretty strong assumption that 142,000 is a low estimate of the actual number of people in the state who are blind or have significant vision loss. The largest and fastest growing part of the population are older adults, age 65 and over. Statewide, that's currently 4.2%. That population is growing so significantly due to disease like macular degeneration, glaucoma, and with the increasing rise of diabetes, retinopathy, which is caused by diabetes. And it's not an even distribution across the state. Certain areas, particularly some of our rural areas and our areas of the state that have large indigenous populations, large Black and Hispanic populations, are much higher proportionally impacted by vision loss, and women in general are more highly impacted by vision loss. The population, spread is, disproportionate. So we've covered that. So Jim, you can move forward. A little bit more about our population. Our employment rate is 40%. So access to employment is a significant barrier for our population. And among the folks who are employed, there's often underemployment where folks aren't working in the fields for which they were trained, or are only able to gain part-time employment. So this is why access technology is so incredibly vital, that it opens up significant employment opportunities, but why that anti-bias work is so important as well for helping employers realize what assets we can bring to the workplace. Our income levels are about 40% make less than $35,000 a year. So pretty significant poverty rates, which of course makes sense when you're looking at low numbers of employment, particularly full-time employment. 15% of assisted living and nursing home residents are blind or low vision diagnosed. But then we best guess estimate based on, again, self-reporting, family reporting, and staff reporting that an additional 50% have low vision. So when we think about folks living in congregate settings, 65% of that population having some kind of vision loss. Again, this speaks to why access technology is so critical for staying connected, reducing isolation and loneliness. And then we also know that less than 3% of the population who are blind and low vision in the state are receiving the services that would be beneficial. Some of those folks choose not to receive service. Others of us, have a strong skill base, so just need, some once in a while service. But the vast majority of folks in the state who are blind and low vision are not receiving services They either don't know about them or they don't understand what those services can do for them. And we also have an insufficient number of service providers. So Jim, you can go forward. I want to talk just a little bit before I turn things over to Jim about dual disability. So there are in our population higher levels of chronic conditions that impact quality of life across all age levels. Things like diabetes, our arthritis rates are higher than the general population because we're at greater risk for falls. So some of those fall-related injuries that become arthritic. Greater rate for heart disease, high blood pressure, and nearly about 50% of folks that are blind and low vision report having anxiety and or depression. So the mental health numbers are significant. And vision loss is often an unrecognized disability when someone has multiple disabilities. So when we see children with multiple disabilities, for example, in the population, sometimes vision loss is so far down the list that the vision loss isn't being attended to in their education settings to the degree that maybe other disabilities are. And then that continues into adulthood, where if some other disabilities are getting increased service where vision loss is not attended to. In talking with folks with multiple disabilities, that bears itself out. There's often, people have been really great about helping me with, mobility, or helping me learn strategies to work with, cognitive disabilities, but I've gotten very little attention for my vision loss. We see a goodly number of folks with dual disability, also including hearing loss. And our services that are directly geared in this state for people that are deaf-blind are, it's very, very minimal. The Center for Deaf-Blind Persons in Milwaukee is really the primary focus for folks with dual sensory disabilities. So that's a significantly underserved population. So we all have our work cut out for us in serving our populations really well. And so let's use this as a time to bridge into what those access technologies are so that we're bringing that awareness forward. So Jim, you can switch slides and I'm handing it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Denise. Appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about what is access technology. And before we really get into things, let's just a little clarification of terms. You will hear the terms access technology and assistive technology. Earlier, when I was doing my intro, I said, I was previous chair of the Assistive Technology Advisory Councils and the year for access technology. So a lot of the field for many years has used the word assistive technology, providing assistance to people, assisting them with doing something. A number of years ago, the council made a decision that we were going to start calling it access technology because, hey, it's really kind of empowering. You're providing people access. You're helping them access things. You're helping them, access information. And it's kind of a forward-thinking, giving people access, empowering people to gain access to things. So we refer to it as access technology. You'll hear the term assistive technology. They're really talking about a lot of the same things. It's just kind of a difference in terms moving forward. So if you hear those things, please don't be confused. Just know what is the thing. So, and you also hear the term AT because a lot of times we just shorten it to AT. So you'll hear that as well. So what is access technology? Well, it really does a lot of things to help people who are blind or low vision. There's access technology for multiple different disability arenas. But for individuals who have vision loss, access technology really provides access to a lot of different things. We've got information. People can access, the news and sports and all sorts of other different things. education, access technology in the schools, so critical to gaining access to textbooks and curriculum and things like that. Communication, things like we're doing now, Zoom. It's really, really empowering. Email is just a huge thing. Being able to, not you have to print out a letter and send a letter and whatever. Now, if you just email something, you can get to much quicker. Unemployment, and this is one of the big ones because access technology has really opened up so much in the realm of employment. I mean, pretty much every job these days requires some sort of use of a computer. You think of a job, and you're going to have to, even if you're just entering your hours, you're going to have to use some sort of computer usage or something like that. So, giving people access to that is really, really important. So some of these solutions are built in, what we call built-in technology. And this is something that's recently changed in the last 10, 15 years. It's really become more prevalent. Many of the operating systems, Windows, Mac, mobile operating systems, will have some built-in access technology tools that can be used. So the cool thing about that is you can just walk up to a computer or a smartphone or whatever and just start using it, which is really empowering. And that's a really a great advancement that's happened because so many people need these solutions. And if they're not aware about them, they can simply enable them to start using the device. There's also third-party software, and we'll talk a little bit about the differences between these two in a little bit. So this technology really helps individuals such as myself who are totally blind. And by the way, we're also going to do some demos. So you'll see some demos of this technology here in a little bit as well. It also helps our population has some usable vision. So people what we call low vision. The majority of the individuals, when we say, blind or low vision, majority of individuals have some usable vision. And so a lot of times these individuals are using that remaining vision to access information visually. And we'll talk about how that works in a little bit, but you heard the term, blind and low vision. It really is encompassing both populations, people who have no usable vision, but also people who have some usable vision who are accessing that vision. And maybe it's changing vision. Maybe it's vision that's declining, maybe an eye disease or eye condition that's declining, changing vision. So it's one of the things we do at the council is, help people work with that declining vision and access the information in a way that's going to be comfortable for them now and into the future. Because you want to kind of future-proof yourself as well, saying, hey, this is how we can do it now, but if my vision changes a little bit, how am I going to access this information in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road? So this technology really promotes independence, participation in society, and lots of other different activities. So it's a really kind of empowering technology, and that's one of the reasons we call it access technology. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So built-in versus third-party technology. So many computers, mobile devices include this technology. So for example, in Windows, we've got something called Windows Narrator. You want to impress your friends and family, make your computer talk, press Control Windows Enter on your Windows computer, and your computer will start talking. And by the way, that same command turns it off because once it turns on, you want to be able to turn it off. It's a really important thing to know. But Control Windows Enter, we'll demonstrate this in a little bit, but that's a built-in technology that works really well if you need a screen reader built in the computer. And mobile devices have the same thing. The Apple iPhone has a screen reader built in. Android has a screen reader built in. These solutions also have screen magnification built in. So Windows, you've got Windows Magnifier. On the Mac, you've got Zoom. So you've got none of these technologies kind of built into the solutions. So you're saying, okay, that's great. But there's also some third-party applications out there. And sometimes the third-party applications can provide features and functionality that's just not available in the built-in software. So, screen readers, I'm using something right now called JAWS, which stands for Job Access with Speech. It's developed by a company called Freedom Scientific, and it provides me some tools that I wouldn't get with Narrator. There's screen magnification solutions out there that really provide some color enhancement and some mouse tracking and some magnification features that just aren't available with Windows Magnifier. So sometimes a third-party solution is really what's needed. And, we really want to choosing the right solution for the individual. It's really bad to say, oh, you've got low vision, you're going to use this. You're totally blind, you should use this. Because there's no one size fits all. Different people have different needs based on what they're using the technology for. And also, they have different preferences. Some people might prefer one solution, some might prefer something else. It really depends upon what works best for them. So just because there is a built-in solution doesn't necessarily mean that's the solution everybody should use. Excuse me. It works for some, but sometimes it's a solution that it works great, but sometimes there's another solution out there that might work a little bit better. So before we go to the next slide, I'm just going to pause real quick and ask Laura if there's any kind of clarifying questions so far, anything that's come up.
Hi, Jim. This is Laura. No questions or anything that I am seeing so far, so you're good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about some of the specifics of this technology. Slide here, and screen magnification software. So this is primarily for individuals who have some usable vision, and it's kind of provides magnification. And technology not keeping up here with me. Okay. So can magnify text and images on the screen, so make things bigger. Now, there's lots of different options here because people have different eye conditions and, again, different preferences. I've worked with large number of individuals who are using screen magnification software, and I don't think I've ever run into two of them that use it the exact same way. Some people prefer to change magnification level constantly, going up and down, up and down, up and down. Some people prefer to stay at one magnification level. Some people prefer different color enhancements because there's different color enhancements that can help. There are lots of different settings. You can magnify the mouse pointer, color enhancements, cursor enhancements, make the cursor easier to see, different ways of changing the magnification level. Is it full screen magnification? Is it just magnifying part of the magnification of the window? So there's lots of different ways to magnify this and change different things. It really depends upon the person's needs. And so Windows Magnifier offers lots of different options. We also have Zoom Text, which is a third-party option, also from Freedom Scientific. On the Mac, we have Zoom, and Zoom is built into the operating system. And then on the mobile devices, they also have screen magnification options. If you go into your settings under accessibility on the iPhone or go into settings on Android, you'll find different options for making text bigger, turning on a magnifier, changing colors, making things bold. And there's lots of other different things that can be done to make the screen easier to see. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you a quick video of some basic screen magnification. Now, screen magnification over Zoom is a bit tricky because if I were to share my screen right now and run Zoom Text or run Windows Magnifier or something like that and magnify the screen, you wouldn't see it. It doesn't magnify when I do the screen share. So the way to show this to you is to do a quick video. This is a video from Freedom Scientific, just showing some basic screen magnification options and kind of give you an idea what screen magnification looks like. So I'm going to go to my desktop here real quick, and we're going to go to we're going to play this video. And this is probably about a 5-minute video. We're only going to show you about the first 2 or 3 minutes. So we're not going to show you the full video because there's no need to go into all these different options here, but we're just going to show you the first couple minutes of this video.
Increase and decrease magnification in Zoom Text. Zoom Text has a full range of magnification levels all the way up to 60 times. You can zoom in and out at any time using the following. the zoom level spin box on the magnifier tool tab. I'll grab the mouse and click that spin control up.
1.4, zoom 1.6, 1.8, 2, 2.25, 2, 1.8,
And back down again.
1.6, 1.4, 1.2.
I'm going to press Alt-Tab to move to Excel, which I have open in the background.
Window task switching, Excel list item, window Excel, blank workbook list item, tooltip C, work files 2019 webinars 2019 ZoomTech.
To zoom in, I can use Caps Lock up arrow.
1.4, 1.6, 1.8,
To zoom out, I can use Caps Lock down arrow.
1.6, 1.4, 1.2,
If I want to use mouse wheel scrolling, I can press Caps Lock plus the Shift key and roll the mouse up or down.
1.4, 1.6.
So that gives you a basic idea of what screen magnification looks like. And a couple things to note there. Get back to my slideshow here. You heard some speech there in the background. You're saying, well, this is just screen magnification. So many screen magnification applications include some basic speech. So they're providing the user a little bit of speech, letting them know things like the current magnification level, or some basic information. It's not enough speech for someone who needs a full-fledged screen reader to use. If I were to try and use ZoomText to do my screen reading tasks, I couldn't do it because it just wouldn't be providing me enough information. So while we call it screen magnification software, you'll hear some speech when people use it because it does have some basic speech options when you're using that. And so we'll talk about screen readers here in a second, but when you hear that speech, that's what's going on. So let's move on to the next slide. And this is, screen readers. So screen readers, as you heard, is reading information verbally that's on screen. So it's using text-to-speech. So it's reading text, it's reading controls, it's reading lots of other different information online. So it's converting information into speech or refreshable Braille. So let's talk real quickly, what is refreshable Braille? So in addition to hearing information, I can also read information tactily. So Braille is a series of dots, and each series of 6 dots forms what we call a cell. And traditionally, Braille was produced on paper, hard copy Braille. So the holes would be punched in the paper and form the different characters. And I could read that and read the Braille. With refreshable Braille, the device has pins that raise and lower to form the Braille characters. And most Braille displays have 20 or 40 cells. So 20 or 40 characters can be displayed at a time of refreshable Braille. So we'll show you some examples of that in a little bit, but when you hear refreshable Braille, it's just a tactile way of reading information on screen. So these screen readers can drive that so they can provide speech, and they can also provide refreshable Braille as well. So these screen readers also provide keyboard access to apps. So as I'm navigating a web page, doing some other different things, we'll look at that here in a second. To access information. So not only is it important to be able to hear the information on screen, but it's also important to have keyboard access to it because I'm not using a mouse. I'm navigating, I'm using keyboard commands. As a person who has no usable vision, without knowing where that mouse pointer is, it's really hard, impossible for me to use a mouse to find things and move around the screen. So I'm using keyboard commands to move around the screen, to navigate, and pretty much everything can be done on Windows and also on a Mac can also be done with keyboard. These screen readers also have a range of speech synthesizers that can be used. And this is for, again, for personal preference, but also for individuals. Some people prefer a male voice. Some people prefer a female voice. It really depends on what works for you. And also some of our individuals have a hearing loss or a mild hearing loss. And they may not be able to hear a higher pitched tone, such as a female voice. They really prefer that male voice, or vice versa. They might have a really hard time hearing the lower tones of a male voice, so they prefer a female voice. So it really depends upon the person. There's different speeds that can be navigated here. Some people prefer to listen pretty slowly when they're first starting out. As they get more used to it, they're going to bump that speed up and go faster and faster. So some applications here, JAWS, which I mentioned, NVDA, non-visual desktop access, is another free screen reader that's available. Narrator, which is built in. And then we've got VoiceOver, which is on the iPhone and the Mac and Apple TV and pretty much every Apple product that's out there. And then we've also got TalkBack, which is on the Android. So up until now, I've been telling my speech synthesizer to be quiet and to just kind of stay out of the way. I'm going to minimize my slideshow here real quick and go to the desktop. And I'm going to tell my speech synthesizer to start talking just so you can kind of hear the speech, hear what it sounds like. And I'll show you a couple different things. Let me change to a different voice first of all.
Select the voice and Zoe Vocalizer Express.
So we'll
Desktop list view, class documents.
Okay.
Space speech on demand. Space speech on demand. Space speech on demand. Reaper
Okay.
class documents, 13 of 20.
So you're hearing the speech read those desktop icons. And I'm going to turn on something real quick
Space
here.
B, Braille enabling the text viewer.
So now you're seeing what's called the text viewer. So on screen, you're seeing what JAWS is saying. So I'm using the JAWS screen reader right now. As I navigate the desktop,
Adobe Acrobat, 12 of 20. 8x8 work. Wisconsin Council, 10 of 20.
so you're hearing 10 of 20. I'm navigating that desktop icon with the arrow keys. I can move around. I can also hit the first letter of an icon to move that icon.
W, Word, 1 of 20.
Hey, Jim, I want to
Okay.
let you know that the slideshow is back up. I'm thinking
Ah.
you want folks to see
Windows
the
D.
desktop. There you go.
I do.
Windows D.
Oh,
Okay,
now you're
thank
back
you.
to the
Word,
slideshow
one of
again. So it's
Windows
toggling.
D.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
One of those things that I wouldn't get auditorily. Thank you. So as I'm navigating the
Zoom
desk,
Workplace,
it's
5 of
reading these icons auditorily.
Dropbox, ChatGPT, Dropbox, was 8x8 work.
So it's net reading these auditorily as I'm moving around. If I were to go into Word, I could type and it would read what.
W, Wisconsin W, Word, enter. Opening dash Word, leaving table, document 1, press Alt plus I to drag.
So if I type here, it's going to echo as I type.
HELLO, space TASI space TET, period, space, enter. Hello, this is a test.
Okay.
Blank.
So it's reading information out, and I'm able to navigate, and I can use Word documents and all the different features of Word, spell check, and all the other different things. And also to determine formatting, because formatting is really important when you're working with a Word document. You need to know if something is centered. You need to know what font it is. So I can go here.
Hello, E. 14 point, black on white, Verdana,
And I can easily tell what the font is, and if that, if it's centered, if it's bolded. And it's really important to be able to tell that because I want to be able to use Word documents that look, visually appealing. If I'm sending out a resume, I don't want to have a document that's not centered or doesn't have stuff in bold where it should and other different things. I need to know that as a person who's using speech to get that information out loud and to hear what's going on. So JAWS gives me some of those tools that I can do to navigate that. Again, I'm going to use keyboard access. I'm going to close this with Alt F4, just another keyboard command. That's it. I mean, these are all Windows commands. Haven't used any JAWS commands so far. These are all things you could do without running a screen reader. If you're in a program, you hit Alt F4, it will close the program.
Alt F4, save at choose a
Tab
learn
here.
more options, save, don't save space, PowerPoint slide,
I'll go back to
Windows
desktop.
D, desktop list,
And again, I can do this same information on the web. The web just as easily.
W, Wisconsin Council, enter. Untitled dash Google Chrome dash Jim left paren home.
So I can navigate here. This is the council
Same
web
page.
page. I can move through the page by arrow
Link
keys.
donate navigation link graphic logo.
It's saying link graphic and tell me those are links. I can move a bigger segments called headings.
Welcome to Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. Heading Level 1, Heading Level 2 Mission. To promote the dignity and empowerment.
And if I want to read that word by word, if I can go control right arrow.
Promote the dignity and empowerment of the people of Wisconsin.
I can even go character by character.
Space W-I-S-I-W.
Now you hear that W is a
Whiskey.
little higher
Space
pitch.
W.
That's telling me that's
Whiskey.
an uppercase character, saying whiskey to tell me that what that letter is. But when it's saying a W, it's a little higher pitch to tell me that's an uppercase character. So it's really easy to tell that and to navigate that. I can figure out what that is. So I move here.
Home.
I've got a lot of tools I can use to navigate the web page. If a web page has a lot of content, for example, I can list all the links on a page, or if I want to search for something, let's say, hey, I know that there's an upcoming Access Technology class going to be coming up, and I'm pretty sure the homepage of the council has some information, but I don't want to have to wade through all the information on this page to find the information. I can use a JAWS command to find a string of text on the page. It's not searching the web. It's only searching the string of text on this page. So I'm going to do a Control F here.
Virtual find.
I get virtual find, and I'm going to just search for the word class.
CLASS.
I'm going to push enter.
Enter. Heading Level 3 Access Technology Class: the state of free Windows screen readers.
So it immediately found it and moved me to that point, and now it's reading at that particular point. And so I can use the arrow keys to read additional information
Heading
here.
level August 4th 6. Heading level 4 online via Zoom.
Yeah, so this is information about one of our free quarterly Access Technology classes that we're doing. We're doing one in August, actually highlighting free screen readers, talking about narrator and NVDA, and letting people know kind of the features and how these can be used, and some of the tools that they can be used, because they both really have come a long way in the last couple months, couple years, and really letting people know that narrator is certainly a viable option for certain situations. Again, making people make sure they have the information they need to make informed decisions. Maybe narrator is the right tool. Maybe NVDA is the right tool. Maybe JAWS is the right tool. We want to make sure people have the right tools, the right information they need to make the decisions they need to be as independent as possible. I'm going to go ahead and close this.
This is Laura.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think I think you kind of just answered a question in chat. And we have a participant asking, are you finding many people still benefit from Zoom text, or have the built-in accessibility features improved enough that Zoom text is not used as often? And I think you just really answered that, because it is an individualized fit, correct?
It really is. When we work with individuals, we start by showing them Zoom text, or some Windows magnifier, and seeing if that's going to meet their needs, because Windows magnifier is built in. And it's for some people, that's all they need. It really depends on their personal preference. It also depends a lot upon their visual abilities. Certain eye conditions lend themselves better to Windows magnifier. Other eye conditions, sometimes people need Zoom text. Some people need the features of Zoom text. So it really is a personal preference. Windows magnifier has come a long way, yes, but there's still things that it can't do that Zoom text can do much better. So it really is a personal decision, and I would urge you to consider both options for individuals who need screen magnification software. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this real quick.
Alt F4, ready, has notes, slide.
Okay, so now we're back on the slideshow.
Class documents, screen sharing, rising need class documents PowerPoint slideshow rising need
So what I did there is just what's called Alt Tab. I'm just kind of moving around the slideshow to making sure to see what windows were open. And again, JAWS is echoing that because I've got it in full speech mode right now. I'm going to tell JAWS to be quiet for a little bit here.
Space, speech on demand.
And so now JAWS is on what's called speech on demand. So basically, don't talk until I tell you to talk. I've had people say, hey, I wish I had that option for my kids. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide here.
Mobile slide 11.
And JAWS isn't obeying me.
Space, speech on demand. Mobile X slide 11. Slide.
Okay, that's not being quiet right now. Gotta love when the technology doesn't work. Let me unload it real quick and reload.
Unloading JAWS. Please wait. JAWS. PowerPoint slide 11. Space, speech on demand.
There we go. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of software refreshing. And that's a really important tool to teach our clients too, is a little troubleshooting. Because things don't always go right. Things are going to go a little bit haywire sometimes. That's computers, that's technology. And some basic troubleshooting tasks and techniques are really important to navigate. So mobile accessibility, we've talked a little bit about this, but there's accessibility features built into iPhones and Android devices, tablets, built-in access. So we've got, on the screen reader side, we've got voiceover and talkback. And so you're talking about a touch screen. And you say, well, how does a person who's blind or low vision use a touch screen? Well, for a person who's low vision, a lot of times it's just, the text magnifies, makes it bigger, easier to see, and they're interacting with the device pretty similar to someone who not blind or visually impaired. But for individuals who are blind, a lot of these screen readers require what we'll call different gestures, and we'll show a quick demo of that here in a second. But the really powerful thing about these mobile devices is this is accessibility right out of the box. And so I, as someone who's blind, don't need to go buy a special device or special software. I can just go buy the same iPhone as everybody else and take it home and turn on VoiceOver. Denise, who has some low vision, can go buy the same iPhone as everybody else and just enable some of the screen magnification options and turn on the Zoom and turn on some of the bold text. Nothing extra we have to buy, nothing extra we have to install. And that's a really powerful, empowering thing. Because, as a person with a disability, I shouldn't need to have to buy extra stuff or enable extra stuff or use extra stuff. It also means I can use any device. I've got a lot of friends and family, and I'm kind of known as the techie. And they're all, oh, can you help me figure out my iPhone? My email's not working, or my calendar's not, it's doing weird things. Okay, give me your phone. And so I take their phone and I turn on VoiceOver, or I turn on TalkBack if they're using Android, and I fix their device, I turn it off, and I hand it back to them. And that's really empowering. And think about a classroom situation. If you're a student who is blind or low vision, you don't want to have to use a separate device. You don't want to, maybe everybody else is using an iPad, and you don't want to have to use a separate device or a separate, device. It makes you stand out. If you can use the same iPad as your sighted friends and colleagues in the classroom, hey, maybe you just have a headphone on yours and yours speaks, or yours displays text in bold text, but you're still using the exact same device. In an employment setting, that's huge as well, because you go into an employment setting, oh yeah, we use iPhones. We all navigate with iPhones. Okay, just turn VoiceOver on that iPhone. It's just really powerful to use the exact same device as everyone else. So this mobile accessibility is really a powerful thing, and can do a lot. So what I want to show you another quick video, and this is going to just show some basic iPhone gestures. And this is a video we did at the council a couple of years ago, just showing some basic voiceover gestures, just to give you an idea of how a person who's blind can interact with a cell phone here. So let me get to the right folder here. Don't play this video.
Hello, my name is Jim Denham. I'm the Access Technology Specialist with Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating some basic VoiceOver gestures. VoiceOver is the screen reader which is built into all Apple products. For devices with touchscreens, like this iPhone, VoiceOver is controlled by a series of gestures or finger movements. To have an item spoken on the screen, I simply touch that item with one finger. This is known as a single finger tap.
Fitness, notes, books, news.
The name of the icon is spoken. If you want to open an app, you simply touch the app with one finger,
Calculator,
and then perform a one finger double tap. So taking one finger and tapping twice anywhere on the screen.
Calculator, list, button.
Instead of tapping, I can also use a single finger to move from item to item on the screen. This is known as a single finger flick right and moves my VoiceOver cursor from one item to the next.
Input, all clear. Change size, percent, divide, 7, 8, 9, multiply, 4, 5, 6.
I can also go in the opposite direction by flicking my finger to the left. This is a single finger flick left.
5, 4, multiply, 9, 8, 7.
When I'm done, I simply slide up from the bottom of the phone until I hear 2 clicks. which is the home gesture.
Calculator.
Another common gesture is the two-finger double tap, otherwise known as the magic tap. This involves taking two fingers and tapping twice anywhere on the screen. This can be done to control a variety of different functions on the phone. For example, starting or stopping music, or to answer a phone call.
Jacobson Bob.
Once I'm on the call, I can end the call with the same two-finger double tap. So these are just some basic voiceover gestures. There are many other ways to control the device and things that can be done on the touchscreen. If you'd like to learn more,
That just gives you a quick idea of some of the ways that we can control an iPhone using VoiceOver. And TalkBack on the Android works in a similar fashion. There's different gestures that can be done to control and navigate the device. So just, like I said, these are all built into the device, all things we can do to move on. So before we go on, let me pause real quick. Laura, any questions that have come up so far?
Hi, Jim. This is Laura. So we did have a comment just saying, do you find that universal design or universal accessibility is being used for technology now, which you just demonstrated? But so are you seeing less people needing to buy separate devices due to this?
Again, it really depends on the person's usage, and that's kind of big one. But let's kind of maybe say that much a little more towards the end, because we can kind of go in a couple different directions with there. But in general, people are using the built-in accessibility features of these devices. They don't have to buy additional things, additional software, which is great. They can use these same kind of tools. It really depends on the person's need and what works for the individual. But we can expand a little bit more upon that towards the end. We're going to have plenty of time at the end for kind of some questions and comments, and let's go back and revisit that a little bit at the end, because we can find a little more to expound upon that solution. But just know these accessibility features really replace the need to it used to be you had to buy a cell phone and you had to buy a screen reader for that phone back in the Symbian days. I'm dating myself a little bit here, but you had to buy these different tools. Now this is all built in, so just know that that's available. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. And so we wanted to kind of just give you a quick overview of different companies in the AT field. And so there is a resource guide that goes along with this webinar that Laura's going to make available. I think she'll put the link in chat and make it available in your survey as well. That lists links to a lot of these different companies. So if you want to go check out these companies for yourself, browse their list of products, kind of see how they work, try some different things out. Some of this screen magnification and screen reading software, there's actually demos available. So it's perfectly free to get a free demo, download a demo of this software and run it on your own computer if you want to try it out and see what it's like. Also, try out some of the stuff that's built into Windows or built into your Mac. Command F5 will turn on, VoiceOver. You can give this stuff a try. It's kind of fun to experiment, just kind of see what's available. But just some of the different companies, Vispero, otherwise known as HumanWare. It's kind of the Vispero is the parent company, but HumanWare is, Vispero / Freedom Scientific. Vispero is the parent company. Freedom Scientific is a company that Vispero purchased a number of years ago. They're still using both brands right now. They're trying to move to the Vispero brand, but Freedom Scientific is such a brand that's been known for so many years. It's difficult to get away from that brand. So you'll hear Vispero and Freedom Scientific kind of interchangeably, but know that Vispero is the parent company. HumanWare is another company that offers a variety of different products, both screen magnification and refreshable braille tools, and some portable book reading solutions that are available. The American Printing House for the Blind is another organization that's doing some great work. They have a lot of great tools for education, but they also have some really great tools that can be used by anyone who is blind or has low vision. And then there's a number of different other companies out there that are producing some great solutions. And the other exciting thing is kind of some partnerships between mainstream and access technology companies. So, these companies that develop these products really work very closely with the Microsofts of the world and the Googles of the world to make sure their products work well with those solutions. And Google is certainly aware of access technology solutions, and Microsoft's certainly aware of access technology solutions, and works with Freedom Scientific to make sure that ZoomText works well, and Google works with these companies to make sure Google Docs works well, because it's definitely a partnership. And when you're talking about software, it's certainly an ecosystem. All players have to work together and do the same thing, and we don't want to have conflicting keystrokes, and we don't want to have software conflicts, other different things. So these mainstream companies are really doing a nice job of working with the access technology companies to kind of help make sure that everything works smoothly and test things out. So it's an interesting landscape. A lot of these conferences you'll go to, and the mainstream companies will be there demonstrating their built-in accessibility features as well. There's a big conference that happens in March every year in California called CSUN, California State University Conference on Disabilities. And it's probably the biggest assistive technology conference in the world, or one of the biggest. And you'll have people there from Google that will be demonstrating their new accessibility features that are built into Android, or things that are working with Google Docs and Google Sheets and Drive, other different things. You'll have Microsoft there showing what's happening with Magnifier and other different things. So these mainstream companies are also doing a lot of great work in the field of access technology for people who are blind or low vision, in addition to technology for all disability segments. Google is doing a lot of stuff for individuals with hearing loss. There's some great work being done for a lot of different disability segments. So it really is a great partnership, something that has continued to evolve over the last 10, 15 years. So artificial intelligence and access technology, AI and AT. So this is something that's really taken off again in the last, I'd say 5 years. And really something that is really opening a lot of doors for individuals who are blind or low vision. Because AI can describe images, can describe surroundings, web pages. We talk about really complicated web pages. Maybe I just want to get a quick summary of that web page. AI can really summarize the web page and say, here's the important parts of this web page. And for someone who's using a screen reader, instead of having to go through for 3 or 4 screens of text and line by line and figuring out what this page contains, I can just get an AI summary real quick. That makes my life, okay, this has got the information I need, or okay, I need to keep looking for something else. So that AI summaries of web pages can be really helpful. The description of images is amazing. It's opened up a whole new arena of, accessing digital content and knowing what different pictures were. So it's really a lot of different information is available now that wasn't available just a couple of years ago as far as image descriptions. Before, if I had a picture, I'd have to see someone who's sighted. Hey, can you help me describe this picture? Can you tell me what this picture is? Now I can go to AI and get that same image description. And I'll show you a little example of that here in a little bit. But it really gives really detailed descriptions, both on a computer and also using the camera on a smartphone. I can put my smartphone at a picture, take a picture, and have that picture described. So I'm going to a vacation in Door County in a couple weeks, and how cool is it to kind of stand in the balcony and take a picture and then have AI describe that picture and say, okay, I'm seeing a beach, I'm seeing trees, I'm seeing the lake. It really adds so much to those of us who really never had detailed picture descriptions independently. To have to ask somebody, hey, what are you seeing now? What are you seeing now? But if I can use AI to get those descriptions and get really detailed descriptions that are, give me great information, that's really empowering. Of course, it is AI, so I have to verify, information. I'm not relying on it from not navigating. I'm not making life or death decisions on it. it is AI. It makes mistakes. It hallucinates. You know, a good example is I was using it to describe a picture a year or so ago, and I was standing on a beach holding a white cane, and it said that I was standing on the beach holding a can of soda, which I guess a white cane is round, a can of soda is round, I guess, but big difference between a white cane and a soda. So, you know, it does hallucinate occasionally, and you have to be aware of that. Also, you know, privacy concerns. You know, I wouldn't have it describe a picture of my credit card statement or financial information, other different things, because, you know, we want to be careful what we're sharing. You know, I think have webinars about AI and privacy concerns. So you really, as a person who is blind or low vision, you really have to kind of be cautious of that and be aware of that as you're using these tools, and know what you're taking pictures of. And, you know, just kind of weed out some of the stuff that might be private you wouldn't want to share with AI. You might not want AI to know, but overall, it's really empowering. It can do a lot of different things, can open up a lot of great information, and describe these images and just give you terrific information. And navigation, you know, if I'm navigating around, walking on the sidewalk, I can have AI read some information, and, you know, as it impacts my businesses. And that goes into our next slide here, which is smart glasses. And smart glasses, again, something that's really changed in the last 3 or 4 years. The Meta Ray-Ban glasses, probably one of the most popular products in the blindness and low vision field right now. And they weren't specifically designed for people who are blind or visually impaired, but people who are blind or low vision are using these things to get image descriptions. Standing in front of a store and saying, "Hey, can you describe the items on this shelf?" Or, "Can you read this menu?" Holding up a menu in a restaurant and saying, "Hey, please read this menu." And there's some, you know, some challenges there, some training that has to happen. They're not you know, some people just want the glasses that are just going to just fix everything. And some people just want, "Yeah, I'm losing my vision, and, you know, my vision is declining. Give me a pair of glasses that's going to fix it." Well, the smart glasses are going to do some things, and they're going to do some tasks really well. But they're not going to be the end all be all, and they're not going to correct, you know, all of your visual challenges. So just be aware there's no solution that's going to fix everything. You know, people think the miracle glasses, they're not the miracle glasses. They can do some really great things. Like I say, if I'm in a store and I want to know, you know, if I hold up a bag of something, say, "Hey, what is this?" And it says Lay's potato chips. Okay, that's great. I can get that information. Or, like I say, in certain situations, having described a situation, describe my surroundings, read storefronts. I'm walking by businesses, you know, knowing where I'm at. So really, and hands-free access. You know, a lot of this stuff can also be done with a smartphone, but if I'm walking down a sidewalk and I've got a white cane in one hand and a cell phone in my other hand, well, I only have two hands. So, you know, being able to access that information with hands-free is also really important. And so, you know, being able to do that is really useful. And, you know, these devices have
Jim?
cameras. Yeah.
Jim, this is Laura. I was just going to share that the WisTech program, as well as the state office for the blind and visually impaired, has made glasses available for demonstrations statewide. So if individuals are not, you know, if they don't have access maybe to, you know, a store to go try them out, or they're just curious, those programs do have them available to try. And I would also point out that they are in, their cost is much lower because it is a mainstream product than a specialty product. So it's within reach for more individuals than some of the higher end dedicated vision loss glasses.
Good.
Not that
you.
I'm
Appreciate
speaking
that.
as a proponent of anything,
Yeah,
but it's just, that's the facts.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, we also have Meta glasses at the council we can demonstrate as well. And I know Vision Forward in Milwaukee has them as well. They can take demonstrations. We also have a couple other different glasses that are useful. That are smart glasses. The Echo Vision glasses from a company called Giga. And there's a link to that. These are smart glasses that are specifically designed for people who are blind or low vision. So whereas the Meta glasses, hey, they just happen to work well for people who are blind or low vision, the Echo Vision has specific features that work well, give a little more detailed descriptions, and have some other features, have some money identification, some other different features that can really work well for people who are blind or low vision. So specifically designed for that population. They are a little more expensive. Again, they're not a mainstream product, so they're a little more expensive. I think the Giga run around $450, something like that. I think the Meta around $350, something like that. So a little extra cost, but the EchoVision glass is another product in this space. And there are several others. There are several others, and this market is only going to grow in the next year, 18 months. Lots of different products are coming out. I know Apple's talked about coming out with smart glasses, and I think Google's going to have some smart glasses out if they don't already. So you're going to see a lot of different products in this category in the next year, 2, 3 years, because it's something that a lot of people are just, it's now pretty fashionable to wear a pair of glasses with a camera in it. And that really benefits those of us who are blind or low vision, can really add a lot and do a lot of great things. So a category certainly to watch and to be aware of. But that's a great resource to know, Laura. If you want to go to check these things out, there are places around the state you can certainly try these out, and in other states as well. So let's go to the next slide here. And so let's talk about video magnification hardware. So these are magnifiers that can enlarge printed materials, and they use cameras and monitors or screens to make this printed material easier to see. So putting a book or a letter or a document under the camera, or sometimes a can of soup or whatever under the camera to magnify it, make it easier to see. Again, these have features like color enhancement, so it can change the color a little bit, and just help those individuals with low vision use these devices. And there's a couple different types. There's the big desktop models that are pretty big and not very portable. But some people really prefer them. They'll set it up in a corner of their office or corner of their home, and that's what they use. It's got a bigger monitor, so some people really prefer that larger monitor and find that monitor really easy to use, really easy to see. And so that works for them. There's also portable models that have different sizes of screens available. And these are devices that can be moved around pretty quickly, pretty easily, run on batteries. And so, if you're going to the store, you can take this with you, and you need to see the expiration date on a jug of milk. Maybe you use this device to magnify that and see that. They've also got a great feature called freeze frame, many of them, where maybe that jug of milk is way down to the bottom, but you don't want to get down there and look, but you need to get your face really close to that to read it. But if you can hold your video magnifier close to this device and put it in the freeze frame and then bring it back up, maybe there's more light. If you stand up there to get some additional light, you can use that freeze frame to kind of freeze that image and then bring it up close to your face where there's more light, or you can stand up and see that image a little clearer. And like I say, they do have color enhancements, changing the colors, making things a little bit stand out a little bit, which makes them a little easier to see. People can use these for reading and writing, hobbies. There are people who use these for sewing and knitting, and putting devices underneath the camera to make it easier to see. And those contrast options can really be helpful and really useful and really helpful. So yeah. And let's show a picture of one of those real quick. Let me see if I can get to this. And let's show a picture of so this is a this is the Clearview reader. And so let me just put a picture of that real quick here. And so this is a picture of the Clearview reader, Clearview with speech. And let's combine what we've been talking about here a little bit. So there's an image on the screen right now. Well, I want to get a description of that image. So I'm going to ask AI to describe the image to me right now. So I'm going to unmute my speech.
Full speech.
And I'm going to use a feature, part of JAWS, called Picture Smart. And I'm going to have JAWS describe this image to us using AI so I can get a description of what it is that visually is happening on the screen right now.
Space. P. Picture Smart. Picture Smart is in progress.
So it's taking the image, it's sending it out, and the camera come back and give me a
The image
description.
shows a desktop video magnifier device, labeled Clearview, designed to assist people with low vision. The device has a flat base when open. The image shows a desktop video magnifier device, labeled "Clearview," designed to assist people with low vision. The device has a flat base where an open book is placed, and above it, a large monitor displays a magnified digital view of the page. The screen shows a portion of the page with numbered areas and a zoom-in image section. Below the magnified text are control icons including zoom in / out, play, and settings buttons, used to operate the device. Link ask questions about this image.
Okay, so we got a nice description of that image there from AI. It described the image, and then it's saying ask questions about the image. So if I were to say, tell me more about a certain aspect of this device, I could ask the AI to describe a certain image of that device. So just to give you an example, how the AI, we talked about the AI earlier, how the AI works to describe these images and can read them out and give the description. So
Escape, blank, clear view.
There it is. So this is the clear view with speech. So it actually has some OCR features. We'll talk about OCR in a little bit. But it can actually read and display information visually, but can also read the information verbally if needed. But the primary focus is displaying magnified image, an enhanced image of whatever's under the camera.
Alt F4, class document. PowerPoint slideshow - rising.
Okay, we'll put the
speech on demand.
We'll go back to no speech mode here. So that is video magnifiers. And so non-visual access to printed materials. So I just mentioned OCR. Many of these tools have optical character recognition. So that can actually take a picture of text and interpret that text and turn that text into printed text, which then can be read by a speech synthesizer or displayed in refreshable braille, and allows me to access that information. So if I can't visually read a page, or maybe I can read most of it, but maybe there's a small portion that has smaller text that I just can't make out, or the contrast of a particular portion of the page is bad, I can use OCR on that text to read that particular portion of the page. Or maybe I've been reading all day and my eyes are tired and my eye fatigue, and I just want to sit back and listen to a page. I've got 3 or 4 pages of printed text I need to read, and I want to use OCR to have that text read out loud to me. So that's an option that can be used to have that information read out loud. Speech or braille. This can also be done with mobile devices. Phones have cameras on them, and you can use your phone to take a picture of a document and have that document turned into text. There's many apps for doing that. There's a great free one that we use. A lot of people who are blind with low vision use, called Seeing AI. It's actually developed by Microsoft, and it actually takes a picture of a printed page and turns that into text and reads it out loud. Seeing AI, SEING space AI. It's it's available for both Apple and Android, and it's a great, can identify text, can read text, can also do things like that, identify currency. So if I've got a $5 or a $10 or $20 bill, it can identify that and can do a bunch of other different options as well. So these are great solutions for reading mail, menus, books. If I need to quickly go through the mail and figure out what it is that I'm reading and what it is that is this junk mail, or is this something I need to keep and maybe examine later on? There's some great OCR options for quickly scanning through the mail and figuring out what's what. And maybe, I don't necessarily hear every single word on the page. If I just hear a couple words here and there, I can, okay, this is junk mail. I don't need this. If I hear, real estate investment, okay, this is probably not something I need. If I hear MG&E, okay, that's probably something I need and probably something I want to pay attention to. So. Okay. So commercial audiobooks. So one of the challenges for individuals who are going through the vision loss journey is using your ears to gain information, access to information. People are so used to accessing everything visually And as individuals with declining vision, sometimes it's a real challenge to learn to kind of get information auditorily. And this is where books can really helpful, because people listen to a book and they find a book that they're really interested in, and they're listening to that book, and it kind of helps their brain transition to, okay, I'm getting this information auditorily, and I don't need to necessarily read it visually. I'm getting the same information by listening to it. So developing those listening skills and really paying attention to the information that's being read. And it's a really important skill if you are experiencing vision loss, because we need to listen to a lot of information, and there's a lot of stuff that happens not only from computers but just in daily life. And if you're not getting information visually, if you can access all that same information auditorily, that can be really helpful. So there's a lot of great solutions for audiobooks, smartphones, tablets, dedicated players, have apps for reading books. And Audible, which is a division of Amazon, has just a huge variety of audiobooks and some great narrators. It's a great source for getting information to the audiobooks, and pretty low. There is a subscription cost to it, but I think it's a pretty low subscription cost, and people can access audiobooks from there. That's one source of audiobooks. There's other sources as well. Some libraries have audiobooks and books on CD and some other different sources as well. And we're going to talk about another source here in a second. But developing those listening skills, listening to audiobooks, and just reading for pleasure. People say, "Well, I'm losing my vision. I can't read anymore." Well, yes, you can. Let's find a new way for you to read. Let's find a different way for you to read, because reading is a hobby that many people enjoy, and it's relaxing, and sit back and listen to a book. It's a great way to relax and unwind and spend leisure time. And that's a really important skill, because people say, well, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, but I can't enjoy my books anymore. Well, let's find a way for you to enjoy your books. So this is the National Library Service, which is a division of the Library of Congress. They operate a free service to access audiobooks and Braille books. And this is available to anyone in the United States who is legally blind. It also covers some additional disabilities, some other additional print-related disabilities. But individuals who are blind or low vision can access books in several different ways, books and magazines in several different ways. So they used to have books on tape many years ago, cassette tape, and we've now done away with tapes, because right in the middle of the book, the tape would get twisted, and you'd be right in the middle of this great chapter, and all of a sudden the tape would get twisted and it would be difficult to hear. We're now making books available on digital cartridges, which can be sent out. So each state has a network library for the National Library Service. In Wisconsin, we have the Wisconsin Braille and Talking Book Library in Milwaukee. And so individuals who are interested can contact them, and they will send out these books on cartridges. And these cartridges can be played on devices that allow you to insert a cartridge and read the book and make it see it. I'm going to pull up a picture of that real quick.
Full speech title is Class Documents-5 Humanware NLSE Reader.
Okay. I don't book five, so I'll only get the e-reader. Okay. So the books can be available and sent out on cartridges, and there's a talking book player that can be available on a kind of a permanent loan basis that can be used to play these cartridges, which is a great way for a lot of our older individuals to access books.
PowerPoints.
And those individuals can get a cartridge in the mail, put that cartridge in the player, and start listening to books. The controls are really easy to use, very tactile, very high contrast, very visually easy to access. And it's a great way for people to access books and you can call them. NLS has a wide variety of both fiction and nonfiction books available, and magazines available as well. So I think there's probably about a couple dozen different magazines that are available that you can get a cartridge sent to you every month. But over the last couple of years, people are saying, well, sending out these cartridges takes time. Maybe it's a Friday night. I want to find a good book to read for the weekend. And if I call the library, it's going to take them a couple days to send me the cartridge. So there's a new service, or fairly new service, out called Bard, which is Braille and audio reading downloads, which allows people to download books directly to a player. Or also there's an iPhone app or an Android app for reading this content as well. So people can actually go and download these audiobooks. And this is all a free service. And you can download these audiobooks directly to their device and listen to the book at their leisure. They also don't have to worry about sending back cartridges, because when you receive a book on a cartridge, you need to mail it back and get that book back. And so that's another advantage of that service. So NLS, again, there's a link to it in the documentation that I sent out earlier. Or in the resource directory.
Slide 18. National Library.
So let's go to the next slide.
Space, speech on demand.
Jaws to shut up here. Any questions, Laura?
Okay, this is Laura. No questions, just I did put in the chat, just as you mentioned Bard, that someone had said that has been very, very helpful for many of the clients that they've worked with.
Great to hear that.
Hey,
so
Jim, it's Denise. Just if it's helpful, a time check. We're at about 11:25.
Okay, good to know. Thank you much. I appreciate that.
You bet.
So just to briefly touch on the importance of instruction, because access technology, there's a lot of really great tools out there. And you can have all the best technology in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, it really doesn't do a whole lot. So it's really important to not only have people give the opportunity to gain access to the tools, but also gain access to the knowledge to how to use those tools. And that's one of the things we do at the council. Vision Forward in Milwaukee provides access technology instruction. Office for the Blind and Visually Impaired provides some of this instruction. And just importance of making sure people have the knowledge they need to operate these tools and to use it independently. Because we really want to improve independence and increase independence. And if people don't know how to use the tools or not using them efficiently and effectively, they're not much good. So, and it's a continuing learning, it's ongoing learning, because there's always new tools, new features coming out. If someone learns to use a screen reader, that screen reader is probably going to be updated once or twice a year. Or a screen magnifier, there are new tools, new features coming out, and maybe those are features that can help them out. So, technology training is not just, hey, one time done. It's an ongoing process. So, but it is very important, just making sure you have access to that information, using your tools efficiently, using your tools effectively, making sure you are able to access the information in the best way possible. And maybe there's new tools out there that can really help you out as well. So making people aware of the different solutions that are out there as well. So, okay, so web accessibility. We navigated the website earlier with a screen reader, and that worked really well because the council, of course, has a fully accessible website. Not all websites are accessible to individuals who are blind or low vision. There's a number of different factors that can make the websites inaccessible and also unusable. So usability versus accessibility, is accessible. Does it meet? There's a certain set of guidelines that are out there. There's a guideline called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines that really looked at how web pages can be accessible for all different disability segments, not just people who are blind or low vision, but for all disability segments. And does the web page or does the mobile application meet those guidelines? But also, is it usable? So you might have a bunch of graphics that are all labeled picture. Well, they're labeled graphics, but they're not really, not usable information. So, the guidelines say things like, put labels in your graphics, Make sure your site is fully keyboard accessible. So, hover your mouse over this to access this. Well, if I'm using a screen reader, I'm not quite able to do that. Making sure there's keyboard access to your page. You're using proper headings to move through the page. Can I access the page, different structure to move through the page? Can I navigate it easily? Screen readers really rely on meaningful structure to navigate a page and to help people move around a page. And web accessibility is something really should be considered throughout the development process. We've seen a lot of websites that say, well, I know I'm not accessible. Let me fix that. Let me retrofit. Well, if you retrofit, yeah, you can make certain improvements. You can make improvements, but it's really something you should do when you're designing your website. Hey, let's make the website usable for all individuals, not just individuals who are fully sighted. Let's make it individual for people with disabilities as well. So really incorporating these guidelines and these usability standards into your website as you're designing it, as you're developing it, and also maybe have some testers, get people to test it out. Hey, does this work with Access Technology? And there are companies out that can do that. There's different range of solutions that can help you do that. But accessibility is really important to think about as you're designing a mobile app, or as you're designing a website, or as you're designing any digital content. It's really important to think about. Importance of advocacy. Advocacy, being able to advocate for yourself is just a really important, if you find a website that's not accessible, contact that web developer and say, hey, I'm using this with a screen reader. I'm using this with a screen magnifier. Here's the issues that I'm having. These people don't know about these things if they don't hear about them. And, advocacy can really remove a lot of barriers and promote equal access. Individuals can really influence products and services. It's really important if companies, you say, hey, I need your web page to do this, or it'd be really great if your mobile application did this. Companies need to hear that kind of feedback, and encouraging companies to address these concerns. And self-advocacy is a really important skill that we try and instill in our clients when we're working with them to help them advocate for themselves and say, hey, here's what I need. Here's what's going to help me, in an education setting, in an employment setting, and just in personal settings. Just ask for what you need. If there's something you need, if it's reasonable, ask for it. And it's really important to be able to advocate for yourself and encourage people to reach out and express their needs, and ask what they need, what's going to work for them, because individuals have different preferences and different needs. And unless they say it, people don't know these things. So talk about kind of some advocacy targets. I'm going to turn it back over to Denise real quick here.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jim. So you can probably tell we've transitioned a little bit. So Jim really took you on a very detailed journey through access technology. Now we want to shift a little bit to what are our collective actions that we can take to increase accessibility. And a part of that is advocacy. So Jim, thanks so much for kicking it off with the self-advocacy. When we think about some of the systems advocacy, that's really critical. We want to be looking at funding streams for devices and training. So, one of the things that's really advantageous with the built-in accessibility, like narrator and the magnification in the PC world, is that it's free. It's part of the system. But as Jim noted, it's inefficient or ineffective for some folks. I find narrator to not have enough power to do the things that I need to do in my role. So I am using a version of JAWS called Fusion, and that has a price tag on it. The digital magnifiers that Jim was sharing with you, those have a price tag. The Meta glasses have a price tag. And right now, under our current systems, Medicaid and Medicare frequently do not help with the purchase of these things. I won't go into the history of that, but it's an unfortunate way that Medicare particularly was written. So there's not a stipend for them. There's not a reimbursement for them, for the most part. So they become an out-of-pocket price or purchase. And then if you remember back to us talking about 40% of our population is making under $35,000 a year, and they're no longer affordable. So we have now an economic condition where people who have financial resources of their own can have access to the tools, and other folks cannot unless they tap into particular programs, through WisTech, through the ILCs, through the council. And a lot of that becomes, the private donation funded. Private insurance has also been slow to adopt supporting access technology. So it's one of the advocacy arenas where I spend a goodly amount of my time is looking at insurance and Medicare and Medicaid, and increasing possibility of payment, not only for the devices themselves, but also for the really critical training. Digital accessibility is another advocacy target. So it is not by magic that websites and PDFs and fillable forms have become increasingly more accessible. There are those of us with decades of advocacy work, putting our shoulders to the wheel with our public officials to increase accessibility and to have accountability come into play for making things accessible so people have equitable access to information, working with private companies to give them feedback on their websites when they're not accessible, giving feedback to our medical clinics when their PDFs are not accessible, or when they might be fillable but not fillable in an accessible way. We create a dichotomy of people who have access and people who don't. And so the advocacy work there is really critical. And then we want to do that advocacy work across sectors too. We're talking a lot about accessibility today from an access technology standpoint. But when you think about places like transportation, bus systems, maps, bus schedules, that's all digital accessibility as well. And so if someone is needing to use public transportation, but they have no access to the scheduling app or the route map that is in an accessible format, then the system becomes much more difficult for them to use. So when we think about advocacy in the access technology space, it's not just limited to devices like computers and smartphones. It needs to extend into our transportation sectors and places where we have to do a digital interface to get services. So Jim, I'll hand it back to you because I think you have the next slide, or maybe I do. Yeah, I do actually. So I'm going to touch a little bit on Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, where it touches on the need for digital accessibility. So, when the ADA was written in 1990 and passed, digital accessibility, website, all of that was still in its very, very infancy. And so digital access was not included in the ADA. And as computer access, digital access, web increased in usage, the gap was realized that the ADA needed to be adjusted to attend to digital access. So in 2010, the ADA was amended to include digital accessibility. No significant action was taken on that, though. It was in the ADA, but not really actionable. And so in 2024, a rule was established that all government websites, because that's what's covered under Title II, are government websites from local all the way to federal, needed to have an accessibility plan in place and implementation underway by 2026. And that was supposed to take effect in April of 2026. The US DOJ delayed this requirement until April of 2027 under the belief that it was such a huge ask of government organizations to have to make things accessible that government organizations needed another year. So this is a place where, as advocates, we want to be very, very attentive and watchful to make sure that there's not another yet delay in the implementation of this rule, because it just gives website developers in the public sector another longer window of time to work towards compliance. So as we move through the rest of this year and we move into early next year, I'm asking all of you who care deeply about accessibility to be watching what's happening at US DOJ. And if there's a public comment period, to weigh in to really push for this implementation of the rule as promised by April of 2027, so that all websites that are government based become accessible. As those sites become accessible, that will put greater pressure on public, privately held websites to move into compliance as well. So the ripple effect will be there, we hope. So Jim, I'm going to turn it back to you because I think you've got the next slide.
And Denise,
Yeah, the next.
Yeah, Laura.
Denise, I'm just going to chime in quick, just from a state perspective on the Title II changes. So in Wisconsin, each respective department is pretty much heading up those efforts.
Yes.
So our office here within DHS actually headed up that effort in partnership with obviously many, many players here at DHS. And so when that postponement was enacted, rolling it back to April 2027, DHS has decided and has stuck with a September deadline for all of our offices to be in compliance, which will be, way ahead of this updated deadline. So the number of files that had to be remediated, updated, and removed was quite mind-boggling. And so our department made tremendous strides on that and are very, very close to compliance, and which is why we're successful with having to implement that September 2026 deadline for ourselves. Just wanted to share that update.
I am so grateful that you did that, Laura. Thank you. And I just want to commend the department for keeping, your eyes on the prize, that information access is a human right, basically. And so thank you for the department's commitment to reaching that benchmark. Many of our municipalities in the state of Wisconsin, City of Madison is a good example, that are also doing the same. They did not see the delayed implementation as a vacation. They're still striving for access and the remediation of all those PDFs, etc. So communities that really have a dedication to inclusion have just kept the work moving. So kudos to DHS and other state agencies for that continued work.
Yeah, and totally agree with your comments there, Denise. So thank you, Denise, and thanks for Laura for the update. This slide's a little bit of repetition of what we already covered a little bit, but this really applies to websites, documents, and also mobile apps. So it's not just websites, and it's if people have mobile apps, different mobile apps for accessing access information, it applies for those as well. So that's a really important thing to consider. So let's go to the next slide. And Denise, we're talking about some low vision. Here's some tips and tricks for making your documents accessible from a low vision perspective.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jim. So, one of our agenda topics for today was how do we all take shared responsibility for creating access? And part of that is whatever documents we're turning out from our organizations, making sure that they are accessible. I just encountered inaccessible documents this morning for part of my work. I'm primarily a screen reader user. I use some, magnification as a backup, but I encountered a document that was not built for accessibility, and so I couldn't screen read it. I couldn't magnify it because when I magnified it, it pixelated because it was just an image. I ended up having to print it and look at it under the CCTV or the digital magnifier that's on my desktop. So what would have taken a sighted person 3 minutes to do ended up taking me 15 because I had to keep finding workarounds. So it is really a shared responsibility on all of our parts to make sure our documents are accessible. So when we're talking folks with low vision who can see enough of the text and graphics to have them be usable, we want to make sure that we are being ADA compliant with contrast ratios. So, a 4.5 to 1 ratio for text. And then when that text is bolded, it's a 3 to 1 ratio. 7 to 1 is really best practice. So, as many of us know, the ADA is often the floor, and best practice is usually a higher standard. Other things to keep in mind when creating documents that are accessible for low vision users is using a minimum of 16-point font. That's sans serif, so Arial or Verdana, something that doesn't have a lot of scroll or curves or little tails, something that's very clean and easy for the eye to look at. And then it magnifies well. Sometimes some of those more fancy fonts magnify really poorly, and they degrade as they get bigger. And then avoiding color coding and laying over graphics on top of text, watermarks, and things like that become very, very challenging for a low vision user to make sense of something that's, some text that's printed over a graphic in the background. So, Jim, I'm going to turn it to you because you're going to pick up some of those non-visual accessibility features.
Sure, yes. So we talked about web page headings. It's really important to incorporate headings into web pages, but also into Word documents. It just helps people kind of separate content and move quickly between content. Visually, if you have a really long document, this might be easy to kind of just skim through the document. But if I'm using a screen reader, having to move that through that line by line to figure out where's the next section to begin. Just using those heading styles really, really helps to navigate content. Alt text is really important. If you're going to include images on your documents or in your apps, on your web pages, including alt text is really important. And meaningful alt text is really important too. So if you picture a web page that has, a picture of someone walking down the street, if your text just says graphic person, okay, that's great. That tells me it's a person, but what does the person do? What is the meaning? Why is that there? And it really depends on the context of what you're trying to convey. But I always say the best way to do is if you're talking to someone over the phone and you're describing a picture to them, you're going to give them the highlights. It probably is not important that the person is wearing a blue shirt. It might be if you're advertising blue shirts, it might be really important. But it might just be, hey, the person is walking down the street and they're carrying a white cane or they're working with a service animal. That might be a really important kind of describing what's going on. And you don't want to have, oh, they're walking on the street, they have blonde hair, blue eye, it can get a little too long sometimes. So just kind of short, meaningful alt text If you're describing something quickly, shortly, but you're describing the main purpose of that image is really important, and conveying what that image is really wanting to convey. Use simple tables with headers. So you want to make sure your tables have kind of like headers and beginning of each rows and columns. And then a good way to kind of check for this is using some of the accessibility checker tools that are built into Microsoft Office, that are built into Adobe, that are built into Google Docs. There is accessibility checkers, and they're not going to catch everything, but they're going to catch some things. So if you have some certain things that, so maybe say, hey, your use of color here might be a problem, or this graphic doesn't have an alt tag on it. Use those accessibility checking tools to kind of make sure your document is as accessible as possible, because they're really important there to have and to use. And they can really provide you a lot of great stuff. So, and also you have the built-in accessibility tools in operating systems. So if you're running Windows, Control Windows Enter turns on narrator. Read through your document with narrator, see how it works. There's pretty basic keystrokes. Or read through your document with VoiceOver on a Mac. So use these tools, try them out. And that's the other great thing about having included accessibility features, is anyone can use them. So if you want to try them out and see how they work, absolutely they can work for you. So
Jim, if I can add one
yeah.
thing to that before you transition to questions.
Yeah.
As much as AI is getting much better at identifying images, I would still highly recommend that when you write your alt tags, you manually write them. So that you are really focusing on what you want to make sure is conveyed to the user, and that your alt tag is accurate. I always like to tell this story that a content communications person working for our State Department of Natural Resources thought that AI was sufficient for alt tagging images, and so didn't bother to handwrite them until she realized that one of the images they love to use, which is a turtle sitting cupped in someone's hand, AI was identifying that image as a chocolate donut on a plate. And and she was like, oh dear, I really have created an over dependence on AI, and it's not giving an accurate description. So as you're creating your alt tags for materials that you're creating, please still take the driver's seat on that one and put in the tags that make sense for what you're trying to convey with your images.
Yeah, terrific reminder. Thanks, Denise, because we all know AI makes mistakes, and those critical mistakes, that's a mistake that somebody just, oh yeah, AI can describe it. And in your example, somebody's, well, why is there a picture of a donut here? Well, what's the donut? What's the meaning of a donut? Where it's a turtle and a donut, two totally different things. So really important. AI can certainly make mistakes, and it's important to really look at those things. Okay, we've got a little bit of time left, and I just want to open it for any questions or comments. People have anything to put in the chat? Laura, do you have anything in the chat?
Hi, this is Laura. I'm asking anything in chat. I just wanted to offer a quick tip on how to turn off the automatic alt text in your Microsoft Office products. So if you are interested in turning that feature off, if you go to File and then Options, when you're in Word or Office, so File, Options, and then Accessibility Settings, you can turn off the automatic alt text functionality within Office 365. So 99% of the time, that automated alt text is wrong. Even a logo, it'll just say graphic logo. Logo of what? So just thought I'd give that little tip.
Excellent. Yes, love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So any questions that we have for Jim or Denise? We do have one. Can you explain how to determine contrast ratios? And I don't know if you have any checkers you wanted to share, otherwise I can certainly pop some of those in the chat.
Yeah, Laura, why don't you pop some of those in the chat, and then I'll just note while you're doing that that there are some digital checkers, and our comms team uses those all the time. Since that's a highly visual skill, I don't have it. But if you share some of the checkers, that can be really, really helpful. There's some good rules of thumb as well. So if you've got a lighter like header background, then it's best to use black lettering with that lighter header. If you've got a darker background, then using white lettering. So there's some, kind of good rules of thumb. But Laura, thanks so much for putting some of those contrast tools right into the chat. Those are good ones.
Yes, this is Laura. I put in the WebAIM one.
Yes.
And
Great.
what's nice, or how these function, is you will actually have this color contrast checker. You'll use an eyedropper to essentially pick up a pixel from the foreground and the background of your document. And then it will pop those in. You'll deposit those into that website, and then it'll tell you whether it meets the WCAG standards, whether for standard print or normal print, or if it's an icon. And then, or if you know the actual Pantone or hex code for that number. So if you know your logo's hex code is, whatever it is, you can just type those in too, which makes it a little easier than doing the eyedropper. Takes some eye-hand coordination for sure. Any other questions for our very knowledgeable speakers today? Oh, let's see, we got Q&A.
I want to check too, Laura, because someone put in a question much earlier about universal accessibility. And so if that person is still here, if you want to just do a quick message, if you felt that your question was sufficiently answered throughout the presentation, or if you want a little bit more exploration of that, that would be great. I didn't want to let that question go off the radar.
Sure, and I'll watch for that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, she does feels it was answered. So great. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks, Amy.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So with that said, I really, really appreciate your presentation today. I think it was very informative, and hope it really guides services for individuals who are blind or low vision. The piece on advocacy, I feel, was just sort of a bonus, icing on the cake there. So that was wonderful. So just a reminder, everyone, that you'll see a survey once the webinar closes. And if you are interested in the CRC or the CEUs, you will need to complete that survey and answer the few quiz questions that we have. If you miss it, that survey will come to you in an email tomorrow because you did attend the webinar automatically from Zoom. And I get those sent out within 30 days. So if you have not received the CERC or CEU by July 30th and you thought you should, please reach out via email and I will double check that those went out to you. It's a human process doing those. It's not automatically sent from Zoom. So it does involve me and some work. So this will be archived on our YouTube channel. And thank you for attending. And we have one more webinar coming up on kitchen accessibility later this summer. Encourage everyone to attend that. And for next year, I am hoping that these will be able to be posted in a way that if you can't attend the live webinar, you will be able to still get your CRCs and CEUs. So that is in the works for 2027. Otherwise, thank you, Jim and Denise, and wonderful job. And everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it.
Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.